activity during September 2019. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received the Speaker of the Kuwaiti National Assembly. During the meeting, the President stressed the importance of strengthening parliamentary relations between Egypt and Kuwait and activating the work of the Egyptian-Kuwaiti Parliamentary Fraternity Committee. President Sisi received the Kuwaiti Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister, where he discussed during the meeting the development of close security cooperation between the two countries in light of their common will in combating terrorism and confronting extremist ideology. Sisi met with the Kuwaiti Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister and discussed the latest regional issues and files of common concern which require support for joint Arab action recently. During his meeting with the Kuwaiti Prime Minister Sheikh Jaber al-Mubarak al-Ahmad al-Sabah, Sisi praised the distinguished relations between Egypt and Kuwait. The meeting dealt with means of boosting bilateral relations in various fields and increasing mutual investments in development projects in both countries. President Sisi met with the Emir of Kuwait, His Highness Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah, where they held wide-ranging talks in the presence of the delegations of the two countries and discussed ways to strengthen bilateral relations, especially at the economic level. Receiving the Guinean Prime Minister, the Egyptian President said that Egypt attaches great importance to efforts to maintain peace and security and achieve stability in the African continent as a whole, and discussed various developments on the African arena, as well as efforts exerted to achieve the priorities of the Egyptian presidency of the African Union. President Sisi received the World Bank Executive Chief and affirmed Egypt's efforts to support development finance policies in partnership with international financial institutions to achieve comprehensive growth in the continent. The meeting witnessed the discussion on development cooperation opportunities in Africa. During his meeting with the leader of the Lebanese Progressive Socialist Party, President Sisi expressed Egypt's keenness on the safety, security, and stability of Lebanon. The meeting dealt with means of enhancing the existing bilateral cooperation frameworks. Sisi met with the Prime Minister, the Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy, and the Chairman of the Nuclear Power Plants Authority. The President instructed to continue working to complete all necessary technical and legal procedures to start the Daba plant project. President Sisi met with the Prime Minister and Ministers of Electricity, Petroleum and Finance and discussed the strategic plans and axes of the Ministry of Petroleum. In this regard, the President directed to continue to expand research and exploration plans, in addition to focusing on oil and gas infrastructure projects. During his meeting with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Planning and Follow-up, Sisi instructed that administrative and institutional reform should be given to all state bodies, in light of its importance in improving the level of government performance and services provided to citizens. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received a delegation from the Center for Israeli and Jewish Affairs in Canada. The meeting witnessed an open dialogue between the President and the members of the Canadian delegation. The President affirmed Egypt's keenness to uphold the principle of citizenship and acceptance of others, as well as the Egyptian efforts in combating terrorism and confronting extremist ideology. President Sisi received the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Republic of Djibouti. The meeting witnessed discussing ways of enhancing bilateral relations, especially in the economic, trade, and security fields. The President received the Director General of the Russian company Rosatom and discussed the ongoing efforts to establish the nuclear power plant in Ad-Daba. The President affirmed Egypt's aspiration to continue cooperation between the two sides to establish the plant according to the highest international standards. The President witnessed the launch of the 8th National Youth Conference at Al Manara International Conference Center in New Cairo, in the presence of 1,600 participants, mostly young people. Sisi received members of the Board of Governors of the central banks and Arab monetary institutions and officials of the Arab Monetary Fund, in addition to a number of financial experts and specialists. The meeting discussed the economic developments and efforts to achieve financial stability in Egypt. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi witnessed Judge Mohammed Mahmoud Farag Hussein al-Din as President of the Council of State and Judge Hamad al-Sayed Mohammed Abdel Fattah al-Sawi as Prosecutor General. Sisi stressed keenness to found a state of law based on justice and equality. During his meeting with the Speaker of the Kuwaiti National Assembly, Sisi praised the strength of the Egyptian-Kuwaiti relations, stressing Egypt's keenness to develop close and distinguished cooperation between the two countries at various levels. During his meeting with the French Foreign Minister, President Sisi underlined the importance Egypt attaches to its close relations with France and the enhancement of cooperation between the two countries during the coming stage in various fields. The meeting also discussed a number of issues related to bilateral relations and ways of enhancing partnership between the two countries. President Sisi met with the Prime Minister, the Governor of the Central Bank, and the Minister of Finance. The meeting dealt with the follow-up of economic and financial performance indicators for the current year 2019-2020, where he directed to continue efforts to reduce public debt and budget deficit. During his meeting with the Prime Minister of the Republic of Sudan, Sisi affirmed Egypt's full support for the security and stability of Sudan and its backing for the will and options of the brotherly Sudanese people in shaping the future of their country. During the meeting, the two sides agreed on the continuation of mutual coordination and intensive consultation, seeking to promote joint cooperation in the interest of both countries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in New York to attend the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Sisi delivered Egypt's statement to the UN General Assembly, and the statement dealt with Egypt's vision and stances towards the whole regional and international developments on the international political arena, especially in the fields of maintaining world peace and security. A tripartite summit was held between President Sisi and King Abdullah II of Jordan and President Barham Saleh of Iraq. The leaders reviewed the latest developments of the tripartite cooperation between Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq, which was launched by the Tripartite Summit on March 24, 2019, and the results of sectorial meetings held over the past 6 months, along with ways to strengthen political, economic, and strategic cooperation and coordination between the three countries. Speaking at a high-level meeting on comprehensive health care, President Sisi said that Egypt's commitment to health issues has been extended to the African continent as a priority of its presidency of the African Union, seeking to disseminate the 100 Million Health Initiative to African countries in collaboration with World Health Organization, or WHO. President Sisi met with the President of Sierra Leone on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. The President affirmed Egypt's readiness to enhance bilateral cooperation with the Sierra Leone side at all levels to support its development efforts. During his meeting with the Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, President Sisi praised the close cooperation relations between Egypt and the FAO in the fields of food security and safety, stressing Egypt's keenness to develop these relations. The meeting also discussed ways of enhancing development cooperation between Egypt, African states, and the organization. During his meeting with the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, President Sisi affirmed Egypt's continued efforts to restore the Palestinian people's legitimate rights. The meeting dealt with the latest developments on the Palestinian issue arena. President Sisi explained during his participation in the dinner banquet hosted by the American Chamber of Commerce his keenness to communicate directly with the American business community to promote plain and direct dialogue on the opportunities and challenges in their joint work. President Sisi met with the U.S. President Donald Trump. During the meeting, they discussed ways to maximize the investment activities of the American companies in Egypt. They also discussed a number of regional files, especially the situation in Libya, Syria, and Yemen, as well as the Palestinian issue. During his meeting with the Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg, President Sisi expressed his appreciation for the friendly relations between the two countries. The meeting dealt with means of boosting bilateral relations in areas of common interest, especially trade exchange and tourism, in addition to energy. During his meeting with the Prime Minister of Belgium, President Sisi explained Egypt's keenness to develop cooperation mechanisms with Belgium in all fields. The meeting dealt with efforts to combat terrorism and ways of settling crises in a number of countries of the region. During his meeting with the Italian Prime Minister, Sisi stressed the importance Egypt attaches to developing the various frameworks of joint cooperation. The meeting dealt with joint cooperation between the two countries on investigations in the case of the Italian student Regini and discussed a number of regional and international files. President Sisi met with the Hungarian counterpart and discussed a number of regional and international issues of common concern. The two presidents agreed on the importance of uniting the international community in confronting terrorism through a comprehensive approach that includes preventing financing of terrorism and supporting it politically and intellectually. Delivering Egypt's statement in the 74th session of the UN General Assembly, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed the need for the principle of comprehensive treatment of the most serious and crucial recent challenges, terrorism. President Sisi met with the Prime Minister of Spain and discussed ways of enhancing bilateral relations in a number of fields, as well as consultations on regional developments in the light of the great challenges facing the Middle East. During his meeting with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, President Sisi voiced out his cherishment of the strong historical relations between the two countries, stressing his aspiration to develop bilateral cooperation in various fields, especially the economic and trade ones. President Sisi's meeting with the Lebanese president tackled means of enhancing the existing bilateral cooperation frameworks, including the possibility of benefiting from Egyptian expertise in a number of fields, such as electricity, infrastructure, and energy projects. President Sisi participated in a tripartite summit with both the President of Somalia and the President of the Republic of Kenya, and he was briefed on the visions of the Somalian and Kenyan presidents on the bilateral issues of dispute between the two countries. President Sisi met with the Portuguese president and discussed means of developing bilateral relations, as well as consultations on regional and international issues of common concern, especially the issue of illegal immigration. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met with the UN Secretary General and discussed the latest developments in Libya, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen, where they agreed on the importance of continuing coordination and intensive consultations in this regard during the coming period. President Sisi met with the President of Ukraine and discussed means of boosting relations between the two countries in many fields, in addition to discussing coordination of the situation of the Egyptian students in Ukraine. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received the President of the World Bank Group and discussed ways to intensify cooperation between Egypt and the World Bank Group towards achieving development in Africa within the framework of Egypt's presidency of the African Union this year. President Sisi received a delegation comprising the leaders of the American evangelical community. The meeting dealt with efforts to combat terrorism. He stressed that the Egyptian state is on the front lines of the comprehensive war on terrorism, confronting the extremist ideology. President Sisi held a meeting with a group of influential figures in the American society. The meeting witnessed an open dialogue with the audience. The President responded to a number of questions regarding the situation on the internal and regional arenas. President and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, appointed the Minister of Defense and Military Production to lay a wreath on the tomb of the late leader Gamal Abdel Nasser in commemoration of his memorial. During his meeting with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities, President Sisi directed the continuation of work to complete the housing and utilities projects according to the determined timetables. The meeting also discussed the executive position of the social housing at the state level. President Sisi met with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Business Sector. The meeting dealt with the latest developments in the reform plan and development of public sector companies, as well as efforts to exploit assets owned by public sector companies. During his meeting with the Prime Minister and Minister of Awqaf, Sisi focused on providing high-quality training for imams or preachers and developing their skills. The meeting dealt with the ministry's efforts in the field of advocacy, translation and publishing, and the training and qualification of imams. President Sisi met with the Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, and a number of ministers and officials. The meeting dealt with the following up of the executive position of the Egyptian Grand Museum project. The President instructed to abide by the timetable for the execution and opening of the project. President Sisi met with the Ministers of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Health. The meeting dealt with the follow-up of the strategy of the Ministry of Health, especially with regard to the executive steps currently underway in Port Said to implement the comprehensive health insurance system, as well as the Ministry's plan to promote vocational medical education.